Hello everybody and welcome back to the Let's Get to Work virtual conference with Imagine More, and it's our final session today. So really excited to have you all here today, and we've been watching the chat room. It looks like there's plenty of families joining in to hear from these fantastic families to share their journey of microenterprise today. So just a little about Imagine More. We're based here in Canberra and are a family-led organisation, and we have been going for about 7 years now. And we believe in a community where everybody's included, valued and contributing through meaningful roles. And there's a number of ways that we try and support family members to really advocate and get the best life possible for their sons and daughters with disabilities. And one of those ways that we do that is through our monthly peer support groups that are focused on particular topics around imagining home, self-managing NDIS funding, inclusive education and employment. We have dates now that you'll be excited to hear about. So to get the registration link for that, we are hoping that you will open up your emails tomorrow morning with the replay, and in that email you will have a number of things. You'll have the replay link for this session. You'll also have the registration link for any of the peer support groups, and you'll have some information around how you'll hear from Freya a little bit later this afternoon around her business and how you can actually access purchasing one of her buntings with a special offer. So stay tuned. With those peer groups, we'll also be offering some mentoring with some one-on-one consultations, but that will only be offered for people that are regular attenders of the peer groups. We are also have some workshops coming up. We've got one on using effective tools to build valued lives and building more competence, and with that will be some really solid strategies for facilitating growth in people with disability. Both of those presentations will be presented by John Armstrong. So for those that have attended any social role valorisation courses or workshops, you will know that John is a fantastic presenter with some fabulous insights. So those registrations will be opening very soon. We'll also be running some sessions on circles of support and inclusive education later in the year. We also want to bring your attention to the fact that we're actually, Imagine More is part of a national alliance of capacity building organisations, and I know that the information that you'll be getting today and also in previous sessions, sometimes it can feel a little overwhelming, so I would strongly advise you to sort of get in touch with any of these organisations that are in your state and territories. We're also excited to let you know that we'll be continuing on the theme of employment with a consortium funding that we got with Family Advocacy and Crew in Queensland, and those webinars will be commencing in October later this year. And given we're on the theme of microenterprise today, we were originally hosting this conference with an aligned organisation, Valued Lives, because they're really skilled and have a lot of expertise around starting up microenterprise. And if you're in WA or in fact anywhere in Australia, you can get in touch with them and find out a bit more about how they can support you. So I want to sort of share with you who's presenting today, but also just give you a bit of an insight of some other examples of microenterprises here in the ACT and elsewhere in Australia. So this is our final session, and we are really hoping that you'll be able to give us some feedback in a survey link that will also come out in the email tomorrow morning. And we highly value that feedback from you, from whether you've attended one session or all of the sessions. given that it is a funded conference, of course you would probably understand that we need to report back on that. So your feedback is highly valued. So we will have Donna and Freya Toussaint sharing their stories today around From Little Things, Big Things Grow. And we've also got Jo Lynham and her daughter Emma sharing their story of Powered by Possibility, Not Defined by Disability around Emma's business as the master shredder. So some other examples of some microenterprises, some here in the ACT is Cameron, and if you didn't hear the first session of our conference, you can go back and listen to that, and you'll hear Cameron and his mum talk about how Cameron started up his own business called Zellner Services here in Canberra. And there's a link. What he does, he digitises 35mm slides. So if you need some of that work done, get in touch with Cameron. Another one, you may or may not have heard of Isaac. He's been running Isaac Delivers for a number of years now. And he's always still looking for some regular delivery jobs. So you can get in touch with Isaac. He's based here in Canberra and runs a fantastic service. And we've got here Ben Payer-Smith's microenterprise on Hazard Apparel business, and it's reasonably new, and we've actually just bought one of his caps, so we're looking forward to that being delivered through the mail very soon. So Ben has designed all of the T-shirts and the designs on the caps, and it's been a business that he's been dreaming of for many years, and it's now become a reality. So get behind that, especially in the lead up to Christmas. It would be a great way to get some gifts for people. And here's Annie Lee. She's now selling Bellingen chestnuts roasted at the local Canberra markets, and they're the ones on the south side running on a Sunday. So I don't think she's selling them this weekend, but if you want to check whether she's selling them any particular day, you can check on her Facebook page. This is a very new business idea for Annie, and it'd be really fabulous if the Canberra community can get behind her. They're beautiful chestnuts. I've actually never had roasted chestnuts before, but they were delicious. So get down there to the markets and support Annie. And finally, I just want to share Charlie Herbert's new little business that he's just testing to see whether he wants to pursue this or not. And I really wanted to show this one today because what people can get a little bit overwhelmed when they hear stories that are, say, 5 years old and how they've usually evolved. It might seem unattainable for some people, but you can see here how Charlie's just started very small. Some lovely little wrapping here, and what it is, it's some dog treats and horse treats. His mum works in the horse rug whisperer tack shop, so it's sort of very appropriate that he could be selling these produce there, and it's going really well. So that's based in Murrumbateman, but it's a really fabulous little testing idea. So now I'd like to introduce to you Freya and Donna Toussaint. Freya's going to be just giving you a little bit of an insight about who Freya is and what she does in her business. And then Donna will step in and give us some more detail around how she supported Freya to get started. So Freya, if you want to come on, I will finish my slide here and then get yours up ready. There we go. Oh, you've gone again, Freya. There we go. All right, I will mute mine, Freya, and you can take it away.
No.
Thanks, Freya.
So Freya, it's our turn. Well, this is Freya.
So just talking to Jan. See Jan there?
You see Jan?
Freya, do you want to click the next button?
Just here. See, just this one.
Oh, you want to click the button? Okay. This is Freya at her shop in the Queensland Children's Hospital on level 2. And this is Freya's family.
Can you introduce the people? Who's that?
Well, here we have Freya's brother, dad, mum and sister. Here's when Freya went to Woodford. She had lots of fun with her friends. Freya likes to get her hair done.
Show us your hair. Show Jen your hair. You got it done yesterday.
Beautiful. Very nice.
Yeah.
Who's your hairdresser? Who's that in the picture?
Lynn. Yeah, Lynn did your hair yesterday. And here's your dog. What's your dog's name?
Does Lynn do Pip's hair?
What?
Does Lynn do Pip's hair?
No.
No. Who does Pip's hair?
Dad.
Dad.
And what is this? Oh. This is Freya's brand new vest. And what does it do, Freya?
I know.
It vibrates.
Oh.
And it's good for your lungs.
And what about who's here? Look at this one.
Oh.
And here you are, Jim.
Gym tomorrow. Got to go to gym tomorrow.
And here you are making your green dress. And we go here tomorrow with Sharon and make your clothes. And what are you doing here? Painting. You're doing art. And you're cooking.
Can you press it? Can you see where the button is? See?
And who's this?
Who's the teacher? Oh, you do know. It's Kate.
It's Kate. And you guys are doing some cooking. And here you are in the shop.
Home or the shop?
And Freya does the gift wrapping and she counts the till every day. Freya also delivers the gifts upstairs to the beds. And when Freya's not at work, she'll go to the warehouses and get all the stock and price all the stuff. And here's some of Freya's lifestyle assistants. Who have we got here?
No.
I think is that Lucy?
No.
No, who is it?
Cat.
Kate. Oh, is it? Where's Lucy?
Oh, yeah.
She's not there.
What?
Who's this? And we got Leah. And Laura.
And as you can see in the background, Freya, we've got our bunting up that you made us for Imagine More. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing that.
Have you got your bunting up behind you? Have a look.
Yeah.
Can you see your name? What's that say? What's that first letter?
Thank you, Freya. You're clearly a little bit shyer today. So thank you so much for sharing those photos with us, Freya.
Oh.
And
That's just making it dark. It's okay.
And we might see if Mum can share a little bit more about your business. Is that okay? That'd be great. Thanks. We're getting lots of comments from people saying thank you.
Yeah.
Where are you going now?
Oh, no.
Oh, I'm going to go and have something else to eat.
Oh.
All right. And now we've got Donna just on to share with us a little bit more detail around how they got started in their business. So thank you, Donna.
Yes, so I titled this From Little Things, Big Things Grow, because we started off with this very small set of drawers, and from that our shop grew. And you'll see at the end of the slides what it's grown into. So just remember, as I'm speaking, you're seeing this from hindsight, and the foresight I had to develop this was very, very small, as small as the little bag of biscuits you saw with the young man experimenting with a dog biscuit idea. We started with a very small idea, and it's become something rather impressive that I'm very proud of. So the purpose of this speech is to identify an interest of the person you're supporting, and just to encourage you to have a go and setting up a business and developing it. As I said, from a very small idea, it can become something big, or you might decide it just needs to stay small. It depends on the capacity of your workforce. So how did we decide to turn Freya's interests into an occupation? And as you can see, she has a lot of interests, and it was really looking quite critically at what she did, how long she could maintain her interest around that. And the interests I was first looking at was when she was about 12 years old. So she's now 23, and some of those interests are the same. Some of them have developed into other businesses from our main business. And let's just have a little look at an example to help make sense of that idea. So Freya does love dogs. You did see a picture of her cuddling Pip, and when she was 13, she signed quite emphatically that she wanted a dog. She patted her leg and she signed birthday cake. And my husband said, Donna, for somebody who's putting a lot of energy into speech therapy, you're really not listening to Freya. She'd like a dog. So for her 13th birthday, he got the dog, and we all shared the dog. The family of 5 share Pip, but it was given to Freya on her birthday. And we started thinking that maybe it was a dog grooming business that we could have and support her to do. Well, once we had our own dog, we started thinking about some of the challenges around that, and none of us are experienced with dogs apart from Pip. So big dogs would have been tricky. Problem dogs, I don't think we would have had the behaviour management to look after all sorts of dogs. So wild dogs sounded like a good idea, and we did some thinking and some experimenting around that. We were really looking at Freya's day-to-day interest in dogs. Now, she loved washing the dog the first year that we had it, and now she'll rarely wash the dog. She's happy to wash the dog occasionally. And her most favourite thing with the dog is to cuddle the dog and have the dog as her confidant. So I was only thinking this morning when I was out going for a bushwalk that maybe, something else Freya could do is pet therapy if we change tact. So all the time you can be expanding on an idea that you first came up with, and it might go a different way. I don't think we've got enough time for pet therapy, really. Dancing is another love of Freya's. She loved that right from a little girl. At a dance academy, at school, she was always the one up the front of the show. And when I tried to think about, what was the profession that she could take from dancing, it was just something that she loved, and it wasn't something that she needed to do for work. It could just be an interest that maintains a fitness, and she gets to perform and hang out with a lot of people she likes. But what was consistent all the way through, right from when Freya was a baby, a toddler, a primary school student, a high school student, is everywhere she went, she was a natural host amongst people. At the daycare centre, I remember as people were coming to pick up their children, she'd pair the parent and the child together, and she'd be saying, come on, come and, here's where your child is. Now, this was a 3-year-old child who could identify matching, you know, the parent and the child together and usher them in. So she's always had a big interest in people, and she does leave an impression on people. And she particularly likes parties, which was a bit of a thought around maybe we could have a business around parties. I don't mind a party, but I couldn't imagine helping her do that every week. What I did identify was that Freya and I needed to do something together. My working life was always as a freelancer, so I had to look at my own interests and traits and Freya's interests and traits. And when I decided that we would be fabulous business partners, because at first I did think I was doing this for Freya, which made me a little bit cranky, really. I was her mother, and all of a sudden now I was having to do this business. And a business coach who was a friend of mine, she sat me down, and I was in tears by the time I actually, you know, stuttered the words which she needed to hear me say was, you know, if you're partners, Donna, it's going to work. If you're doing it for Freya, it's not going to work. So I will say before we started the business, that change of tact really helped establish the relationship that we have now. Both of us bring our own skills to being CEOs of Thinking of You Gift. Have the courage to just give it your best shot. You can fail. That's okay, because from that you might learn something else. But if you don't think about it, then you'll never know. Just give it a go. So, as I was saying, it was good when Freya and I decided to be partners, because the flexibility I needed to have around her own health issues was a stumbling block. I had been a casual florist for the whole time Freya was at high school, thinking that would work for our family. But after 8 years as a casual florist at the Mater Children's Hospital, my boss said to me one day, you know, when I asked for some time off, because every 3 months Freya goes in for a 2-week treatment at hospital. And I'd say to the boss, oh, you know, that 2 weeks I probably can't do the shifts that I normally do. And the realisation came when she turned around and she said to me, oh, well, isn't she better yet? And I thought, gee, if my boss, who works here at the Mater Hospital, even though it was a florist, you know, can't understand that somebody with a lung condition has some health needs. I'm a casual florist. Surely I'm going to have to design my own work, because I can't keep fronting up to this woman and explaining my needs. So I thought, take control of the situation and look at the working hours I had, build on the strengths that I had, and one thing led to another. So the two pivotal points that I want to just highlight for people is, if you're going into even a micro business, I think it's good to have a basic understanding of business skills. And it doesn't have to be an extensive 3-year course. The course I did was 1 day a week for 12 weeks. And it just gave me some ideas around what business looked like, whether I was prepared to make that effort, and gave me some skills and a framework from which to think about our business. There was also an opportunity through Centrecare at that time to apply for 2 very small grants, one in year 11 and one in year 12 when Freya was at school, to just test things that Freya was interested in, with no real outcome, of just testing the interest and being creative, which is something I love to do. So that wasn't a very hard ask. The community, who and what did I know? So this slide is really just talking about both the strengths that Freya and I brought to Thinking of You Gift. And I'd like to say is that you don't have to be a partner with the person you're supporting. You can identify that, you know, some work is the idea that you want to have as a role, and find somebody who's a business coach. You don't have to do the same process that I went through. What I needed was a job for myself and Freya needed some work as well. So that's a list there of just some of the things I was thinking about to make those decisions. And I have 2 other children as well. My youngest daughter is a bit of a go-getter, and she definitely takes up that 4th point where, you know, her first break for getting a job was, you know, people she knew or looking at the environment we were in. I think she got a job in a cafe just down the road here. She's now 17. But her very first job was actually, she was going to do dog walking. And she put a sign up in the bus stop, and I thought, oh, she'll never get a job. Well, the first job she had was minding somebody's dog over Christmas, and she got paid $400, which was cheaper than putting the dog in the kennel. And I must say, I didn't think she'd get any work. So the point around that is, you know, people, just put the word out, and you'll be surprised at the opportunity. But if you don't start talking things up, you're missing out, I think. Now, I have quite a big social network of people. This was one of the very first meetings that we had. The woman with the pen and the purple top on, I've known her for probably 35 years, well before I had a family, and that was when I was working in community arts. So I actually took Pauline and I went down to the Gold Coast and heard Darcy Elks speak for Centrecare about these grants. And so I needed somebody to support me to help hear the information who wasn't necessarily connected in a disability, you know, world, who could come and just have a different set of ears. So I think, again, ask people and you'll be surprised at the professional and emotional support that you can get. And specifically if you target what you ask people for, I have found circles of support. They don't work for me. I actually have this idea that I have pods. So I'm much better at asking somebody if they could help around being a business coach, or maybe, you know, they could help take, you know, a role in some of Freya's transport. Because when this work started, we didn't have any NDIS funding. We had a small pool of money and a lot of informal support from a lot of people who had different tasks, who were prepared to come forward and help. This is a little bit tongue-in-cheek. We both have a lot of professional connections, and Freya certainly knows all the staff there, including the clown doctors. The first year of business was probably the most difficult year, even though I had a plan probably when Freya was 15 in about year 10, and I tell you, I was shaking in my boots then because the plan was pretty sketchy, but I had a plan, I had an idea. So 2016, we opened up the business full time. In 2015, we'd been doing some work experience at the hospital with a small version of, well, actually that cart that you saw in the beginning, that was our very first shop counter and storage and everything. That was the shop, that set of drawers. So the trickiest thing for me was establishing a different routine after school, because Freya loved school. So even thinking about what a day would look like was quite tricky as a worker. Seeing what worked. The first morning we went to work, the first, month, we tried to go and be on the peak hour bus, which was fantastic because Freya had never seen a peak hour bus. She'd gone on the public transport, in the middle of the day, or she'd gone to school on her own bus. And to be in the peak hour traffic, that was fantastic, to be around all those commuters. And I said, yep, they're going to work, and that's what we're doing. So we built on that opportunity, is to go to work, is, we live not very far away, and the best way to do it is to catch a bus. So she happily goes to work and opens up the shop now on her own. She's still supported by somebody on the transport as she gets there. So small things can lead to big things. And, 5 years in, we are really trying to focus on some of the handmade gifts that we're making ourselves. We've got a greeting card range, which is from the Can Card Collective, and there's 7 or 8 different artists who are all working towards their own micro businesses of card making. So if art is something that the person you're supporting really likes, might be an opportunity to become part of the Can Card Collective. And those cards are sold with all the gift packs that we send out. There is a set of criteria about being part of that collective, and nobody's going to make a big income out of trying to sell cards, but it's an opportunity to trial a very small idea and see what else might come from that. So we've got some young artists who are making cards. The sewing of the bunting that we've got there is Freya really loved sewing at school, and it was something that I was a bit protective of because I like to sew and I didn't really want to have to show Freya how to do that. But when I took it away from me, there's plenty of other people I know who like to sew who were more than happy to spend time with Freya sewing, and it was a skill that she learnt at school. So we've gone on to now have a fabulous signature bunting, and Freya hand screen prints that usually for about 7 or 8 weeks in winter. And we have a big sewing bee where the community is invited to come and sew. We buy everybody lunch because it is a product that we sell for stock in the shop, and it's the best community participation that you can get on board with. And that came about because in the hospital there's lots of women who like to make quilts. They like to make pillows for the oncology patients, and they also like to make teddies. So there's a lot of women and men who have some spare time, they're retired, they like to give back, and this is our way for Thinking of You gift to invite some of those people once a year to be part of Freya's micro enterprise of bunting. And there's a big story behind how we got onto that. One of the other things I've noticed with Freya working is once you teach Freya something, if you scaffold the learning well, she retains the information and she's very proficient. Her use of a mobile phone is far superior to mine. Most of her communication is done through the phone, and an EFTPOS machine. She's gone on to now needing to have her own credit card, and she'd quite like to have a watch where you can just, do that, tap it on the EFTPOS machine, because she's seen all the customers come, and she thinks it's well within her right to have one. So I'm still having a little few thoughts around that, around budgeting and how that might work for Freya, but she certainly understands the role of shopping from both sides of the counter. So the ways Freya has grown is in all aspects of her life. Even just now she took down the worm bin. When she wants to do it, she's highly motivated, and she's watching all the time about how things are done. So I'm surprised continually every day. The number of times at school we did handling money and classifying things finally came into its own when we had the shop. I've got some fabulous slides, I'm not sure if they're on here, of Freya counting the float. Big story around that as well. So the benefits for setting up a micro business, because it certainly was worth it for me, is we are wealthy and rich. Not so much financially, but we have definite richness in our time and meaning of how we spend our daily work. I don't have to answer to that boss anymore about, being 10 minutes late for work because of whatever happened at home, or asking for time off. Our business has a lot of flexibility. There is some pitfalls. As I said, we're not wealthy financially, so we have a limited income. It's been quite a slow slog, and being our 5th year in business, we're just at the tipping point, which happens in most small businesses, is to see, what happens with our income. We have funded through the business all our shop fitting, and I'm going to just show you that picture next because it's pretty amazing. That was finished in December last year, and this picture was taken March 2020. So I was going to bring in the big money and start paying ourselves a more reasonable kind of wage. But previous to that, for 4 years, we've paid for that shop fitting out of selling our goods. through the Children's Hospital and making deliveries. So it's a pretty mean effort, I reckon. So with COVID in April, we had to try and refocus. The shop's actually closed. We are still taking deliveries up, and we've got one this afternoon after this talk. Freya will be taking up a gift to ICU and another gift over to Maruka, which is very close to where we live. So during April, we really put a push on our bunting because we had a bit of it, and I just thought it was an opportunity for Freya to bring in her sewing skills and kept us very busy. We had a lot of friends who commissioned us to make this 1 day at a time bunting, which was just a nice focus for everybody to try and get through the first lockdown, I think. And here we are again. The woman in the grey on the left-hand side is Pauline, that woman I said who I knew 30-odd years ago and came to that meeting when Freya was in grade 11 to help me think about how to write up a grant. This is the sales pitch. If you use the code IMAGINEMORE and go to our website, you'll save $25 on your own personalised bunting. So it's only open until August 31 because then we'll start getting ready for Christmas sales. So if you'd like your own bunting, please put the code in. The reflections on what we've done is to start small, just slowly build on what you know. Our shop had very irregular opening hours and you know, a few friends said, oh, well, what kind of shop is that? And I said, well, it's a shop that's built around my needs and Freya's needs. This first year I have to find what things she can do in her role as a shopkeeper. Sitting at a counter can be quite boring as a shopkeeper. Over the 5 years, we've found ways around that, and Freya's skills around working at the shop have changed. She was boss lady on Wednesdays, used to be her day to be at the shop with support from her lifestyle assistants. And there was a few ideas around that too, which I'll share at another time. But the main thing is she needs variability, and she loves delivering gifts. That's the highlight of her day, and especially gift wrapping and writing the cards, because that goes back to the parties. She's a party girl. If you have a party, you give a gift. So there's a nice connection there for her. You can read that one. Just any time's a good time to start. Just don't wait is all I can say. If the idea you head towards isn't the one you started out with, you'll come up with another one. So Freya was born in 1997, and like most of you, I'm sure you had a pretty frightening future presented in front of you. But the future I could never have imagined then was that at 23 years of age, and mine closer to 60, that I'd actually be running a shop. My very first job when I left school at 18, 19 was to work in a kitchenware shop. And I hated it. I remember saying to my dad, oh, how could anybody stand in a shop all day and sell things? And he and I have a bit of a joke that, 40 odd years later, what's my final career but opening and running a shop? So if you want to hear some of the other stories, I have just started this blog called Thinking of Others blog, and it's just sort of snippets of some of the things that I'm thinking about, because some days are hard and some days are golden. So I needed a way to share some of those thoughts. So if you need another bit of a read, that's something else I'm working on at the moment. So I wish you all well on your journey, and hand it back to you, Jan.
Thank you so much, Donna and Freya. That was really awesome. And as you can hear, everybody, that, there's a lot of depth to the story that Donna and Freya couldn't go into today, but it gives you a really clear snapshot of the thinking process and the result of some hard work, actually. But I've visited the shop in Brisbane, in the days when we could actually travel interstate, and it's beautiful. So congratulations on all your hard work, because it really is thoughtfully created, and it's a beautiful shop that you're both working in. So, You can also see, you've demonstrated there really clearly all of the different skills that Freya has developed over the years, and you can see the surprise that it's giving you at times. So I think that's another message in itself, that sometimes our kids with disabilities exceed what we sort of expect for them, even though we've got high expectations. So thank you so much for sharing that, Donna. We will take questions after we hear from Jo, so we'll bring Donna and Jo back when Jo has presented her session, and we'll certainly take those questions too. So thanks, Donna, and you can go and have a cup of tea before closing time.
I will.
And now I'd like to introduce Jo Lynham, all the way from Townsville. So Jo will be sharing her and her daughter's journey around Emma becoming the master shredder. So I will pop your presentation up, Jo, and thank you very much for joining us today.
Hello, everyone. So today I've been asked to share with you how we came up with the business, how it works, and how Emma's life is as a direct result of all of that. So I might say I did invite Emma to be part of this presentation, and she told me, no, I'll go work, you do it. So here I am, I'm doing it. So Emma is the master shredder, and she's powered by possibility, not defined by disability. That's the wording that's used on her business cards, and it's also the signage on her car. So for me, the key word there is possibility. So for me, that word encases the seed of potential, that anything is possible if you can just think outside of the square for just a moment and imagine what might be. So, okay. I cannot see the next button. Okay, no, there it is. I've got it. It's all good. Okay, so when Emma was at school in year 12, they used to take some of the students to the office to give them office skills. So that involved doing things like shredding, putting newsletters into envelopes, stapling newsletters together, and filing. Now, the only part of that Em had any interest in was shredding. And what I noticed was I'm not sure why, perhaps it was the repetitiveness, but it seemed to calm Emma. And she also took enormous sense of satisfaction and enjoyment from completing the task. So I had this idea to start a small business for her around something that I could see she benefited from and enjoyed. Because for me, it's really important that Emma contribute, that Emma has a good life. So I'll say at this point that Emma does have a good life, but it's built on a solid foundation of social role valorisation. That has been enormously important. So I began writing a letter and sending that out across the city, thinking ever hopefully, oh gosh, the phone will probably ring off the hook. Not so much. So then I narrowed my focus to, well, who would need a confidential service? So then I thought, well, yeah, lawyers will probably use that. So I approached a legal firm that we had used to have our wills done and spoke to one of the principals. So what I was sharing with him was he was willing to work with a great work ethic, and that I was really wanting for her to have a role, a visible role, a valuable role where she could contribute. And I guess I was sharing with him the principles of SRV without explaining that, and wanting him to understand that it wouldn't be a one-way street, that Emma would bring many gifts into the business. And he could see the potential. And so Emma began with one paid client. Now, Emma's service is very unique in that when she was at school, I must have spent a small fortune on tutors to try and ensure that Emma could read and write. Because, like all parents, I guess, I was sure that if she could read or write, then she'll find a job. But she never did learn to read or write. So when she left school, I saw that as such a deficit. But now I realise that's actually a huge plus for her business, because who better to shred confidential documents than someone who can't read them? It's also unique in the fact that she owns all of the equipment, including 2 commercial shredders now, a vehicle, and it's all registered in Emma's name. So when we began with this one paying client, Em had a fairly small shredder, and they were really happy, and a lovely relationship with them began to build, where staff were keen to see her each week and hear what she'd been up to. They would take photos and post them on their Facebook page, which, you know, Em loved seeing herself like that. That was amazing. And then they opened the door for another legal firm, and that legal firm opened the door for another legal firm, and that legal firm opened the door for another one. So by that time, Em then had a government department. That's a huge story in itself, just getting there. And she also had a fairly large financial institution. By this stage, we're talking about a period of about 18 months. In that time, Em went through not 1, not 2, but 5 of those small shredders. She literally trashed them. So it was at that point I thought, this is ridiculous. We need to look into buying something bigger, sturdier, that can do the work, which is when we assisted Emma to buy a big commercial one, which she now has 2. One is a backup. Her vehicle is a disability-specific vehicle so that the shredder can easily be loaded into the back of it. So within this, as the master shredder, it brings to Emma some really powerful roles. One being obvious, a business owner. The second one, she's the boss. Now, Emma didn't sort of initially see herself that way, because when we began this, Emma had the vast amount of 3 hours a week funding. I know, I'm sure you're wondering, how did you use it all, Jo? We didn't. So I took on the role of the support person to help her in the business. But I knew that for Emma to truly grow and begin to see herself outside of a daughter and a sister, to see herself as an individual, as an independent woman, as a businesswoman, I would need to get out of the road. So I was always aiming for that. And thankfully, the NDIS has helped that. So Em could then, with paid staff, she then began to tell them, me, I'm the boss, which was very interesting to hear that feedback from staff. So Emma is also an earner. She is paid and saves money from her work. It's also important to understand that Emma is a contributor. In the Townsville region, the NDIS contributes $130 million to the local Townsville regional economy. Yeah, $130 million. That's some serious smackaroonies. So Emma is helping through employing 4 staff, all of whom spend their money locally to contribute to that economy. Emma also has another really valuable role as an educator. In that, what I mean by that is just by being herself, by going out into the community, she is educating people to think differently. An example of that being her support person told me a few months ago that Em was off working and she was putting some stuff into the car, and a person came along and said, I see this van in the city each week. What is it? Who is this person? And so the support person explained it all to him, and he was like, wow, that's really amazing. Can I have a card? We've since got that person as another business for Emma. So in her own way, Emma is helping to be that ripple on the pond, if you like, that goes out and changes people's minds about what is possible. What might you be able to do? Emma also has another very valuable role of an inspirer. On a regular basis, when Emma first began work and I was still in the role, I would hear lovely stories from people about how great they felt about working where they were, because this organisation, this department, this business had given Emma an opportunity, that they felt proud to be a part of Emma's journey. There's an interesting story from one of the legal firms that one of the solicitors was telling me one day that one of the secretaries was on Facebook chatting with friends, and this person was talking about the master shredder and the secretary had said, "Oh yeah, she's our shredder. She's our shredder." And for me, that is just the most life-affirming, wonderful thing, because that tells me that that business has a sense of ownership. She's ours. I can't ask for more than that, really. So I'll just give you a quickie rundown on what Emma's day sort of looks like, so you know some idea of how it works. So Emma has a staff person who comes at around about 6:45 in the morning and wakes Emma up and helps her to get going. Em's not the best morning person. Not sure where she got that from. But anyway, so then that assistant then uses the iPad, and Em decides what she would like for breakfast, what she would like for lunch. She gets herself up, gets herself organised. By 8:30, the other staff member arrives who works in the business with Emma. Now, at the moment, we have that on a week-on, week-off with two different people. So that person arrives and makes sure the shredder's working, it's loaded into the car. Emma is responsible for packing her own lunch, her drinks, and all of her equipment into the car, and off they go. When they get to the first job, the support person unloads the shredder, sets it up where Emma is going to need it in that particular business, and then the staff person leaves. Now, they leave because this is confidential work. They can read and write. So when I say they leave, they're not there where Emma is working. But what I want them to do, while they're not actually loading and unloading shredders, is to work towards helping to tease out potential relationships with Emma and someone within that business. So an example of that. Not so long ago, Emma got another legal firm. And so one day, her assistant was talking to the receptionist about a particular solicitor that gets on real well with Emma, and Emma likes her. And so what she was able to tease out was when that solicitor's birthday was. Now, this matters because when that date came around, Emma and her support person went to that legal firm with a flower and a card. Now, the feedback and the photo that I saw of that was just priceless, because the solicitor felt amazing to get this gift from Emma, so unexpected. And of course, Emma felt wonderful to be the giver of the gift, and that's really important to remember. The other thing that happens while Emma is working, staff will do little runaround jobs. Sometimes we have a bit of a challenge getting the bags back. So they'll go and collect bags, other things like more oil for the shredder, or any other little jobs that might need doing. They'll run around and do some of those things for me. But essentially, I'm wanting them to think about how can you tease out and find out more that might be somewhere where Emma and someone in that business have something in common that they might share. Yeah. All right. Wait a second till I just, yeah. Cool. I just can't believe this is all actually working. So, as I mentioned before, Emma's life is based around social role valorisation and having good roles. I could never have seen, if I'm honest, I could never have seen the power of work in Emma's life. She began work head down, really nervous of meeting anyone, and not at all communicative. I will say at this point that Emma does have some significant challenges around communication. She was not only born with Down syndrome, she has autism, she was also born with a cleft palate, and she's deaf. So communication is a challenge, but that has not been a stumbling block. We use an iPad for Emma to tell stories. So over a period of a fairly short space of time, I could see a huge shift in Emma. She walked more upright. She signed hello to people. She smiled, and she took such pleasure and pride in people wanting to come and listen to her little story and see what she'd been up to during the week. That fed back to Emma. I'm worthy. These people like me. This is good. And she continued to grow. So that confidence allowed us and Emma to be able to think about moving out of home. So in 2017, Emma moved into a little rental for a year. Best thing that ever happened. It was just an amazing experience to watch her just take off and soar and claim the space as her own and get to know the other people in the block. We chose the block that she lived in quite deliberately and consciously because there were only 6, and I knew that it would be potential for Emma to have some kind of connection, relationship with those 6 people, which she did. And we started to do that by Emma going to the markets on Sunday and thinking about what might she get or give for this neighbour or that neighbour, and hosting little events and parties at her home and inviting them to come along. The really nice spin-off of that is that Em had a Christmas party the first year she was there and invited everyone. And as everyone was leaving, and it's like midnight, and I'm thinking, oh, go home for God's sake. One of these tenants said, you know what? I've lived here for 6 years, and this is the first time any of us have ever got together. I thought that was a really lovely thing that Emma had done. So in 2018, Emma moved out of that little rental and into her own property. So she's now a home owner. So that means that, yes, Em's got a mortgage. So I like to say, nothing says inclusion like a bit of debt. Yeah, just saying. As a homeowner, Em also gets to play the role of host. So, for example, when they have staff meetings, I'm not sure what day they are now, Emma is the person who provides afternoon tea and sorts that out. She does the same thing when they have sessions with the speech pathologist. So that's another valuable role. Emma lives in a little duplex and has an elderly neighbour. And last year, her neighbour fell and broke her knee. Emma was very concerned about not seeing Anne in the morning. So she went to the hospital a couple of times to visit and make sure Anne was okay. They have a nice relationship despite the age difference. I initially was a little concerned. I thought, how's that going to go? Anne often in the cooler weather comes to the markets with Emma on a Sunday and has morning tea. If Emma's hosting a microboard meeting or some other function at her home, she always makes sure to ask Anne. They exchange Christmas gifts and things like that. And they're just things that you do with your neighbours so that you build that relationship for yourself and for the other. The other picture is of Emma in her voluntary role with a local theatre company, where Emma does some voluntary work front of house, because Emma's a great lover of theatre. And Emma also has a small market stall at the Townsville night markets, the Strand markets. So this is paper products, a tiny, tiny amount of the enormous amount of paper that's generated in a week is used to make handmade products. So that's greeting cards, little bricks that you can use in barbecues, and stationery sets. The other photo, I'm incredibly proud of this role that Emma has. She is a counsellor on Townsville's Youth Council. This opportunity came to Emma via a member of her microboard. This is an amazing role for a person with an intellectual impairment to have, and in that role, she is a great educator. So, wait a second as we move on. So, I wanted to talk a little bit about the role of staff. So, the role of staff is a really important role in that, despite our appearances, I'm not as young as you may think. So my thinking for some time has been around those questions of what's going to happen to Emma when I'm gone? Who's going to know that Emma likes this? How is she going to be supported to make decisions? Who will know these things? And understanding that I need to get further out of the road for Emma to have her own independent life and choice of her own. So that's been my thinking. All of Emma's staff do SRV training, straight up. That's it. I then come back in for a little bit to work with them to ensure that they understand how to apply SRV to Emma and the role that they have with Emma. And the other thing that I always talk to staff about is if you're doing something consistently for Emma, I want you to ask yourself, how can you get out of that and help Emma to do it so that Emma has more independence? So if you continue to do it, you're really effectively stealing her independence. And your real job is to kind of back yourself out of anything to do at all other than support her and encourage her to be more independent. The other thing that I want to say about staff from our personal experience is obviously you choose staff carefully and wisely, but I think it's really lovely to watch the life experience, the highs, the lows, the values that staff bring to Emma's life. That's a very different experience for Emma than the experience she has with me as mum. So Emma will perform and do certain things one way with me, but it's really lovely to watch that staff can open Emma to completely different experiences. Now, the picture of Emma filling up the car is a really good example of that. When I was working with Emma in the business, this was one of the things I was trying to step back from. And I was each week thinking about devious ways to negotiate this with Emma and get Emma to sort of like, yay, I'm going to fill it up. Nope. I think I might have even stooped to downright bribery and corruption, but it didn't work. However, more recently, staff have been able to help Emma to step up into that role. So I'd like to share a little story that Zoe shared with me not so long ago, that Em determines the day that they're going to fill the car up and where they go. So they were at the service station, and Zoe said she was just sitting in the car checking her phone, and Emma was filling the car up and put the Bowser back, reached in, got her bag, went in to pay. There was a young man filling up his car right beside Emma. And he spoke to Zoe and said, you know, can you tell me a little bit about the car and what's this all about? So Zoe explained. And he said, like, that's really amazing. I have never seen or heard of a person with Down syndrome having their own business. And he said, I've just watched her fill the car up and go in on her own and pay. That's really amazing. Now, in that role, just doing an ordinary thing that we all do every week, we fill our car up. But in that moment of doing something ordinary, Emma took ordinary and turned it into extraordinary, because she became that ripple out across the pond. So that young man, just doing an ordinary thing, filling up his car, he now, the next time he sees a person with an intellectual impairment, knows anything's possible because he's been shown outside that square. So Em's a pretty good cook, and we did buy her a microwave when she moved out, but I'll be honest and say I had concerns about her burning herself. So the only people that used it was family and staff. Late last year, I was at Emma's place one night, which is really out of the ordinary for me to be there at that time, but I had to drop something off. And here she was in the kitchen. And she said to me, no, you wait. You sit over there. So I sat in the lounge room. She put the food into the microwave, turned the microwave on, put her oven gloves on, took the dish out, put it onto her plate. She then turned at me, looked so deliberately at me and went, see, I did it. In that moment, I had this really amazing sort of insightful realization that all along, she knew she could do it. It was just my fear and my concern that was holding her back. And when I was out of the way, she flew. And so I said to the young girl who was working with her on that particular evening, how did you get her to do this? And Shelby looked at me like, I just did what you said, Joe. I'd been putting stuff in the microwave for her, and she said, I thought, this is really easy. Emma should be able to do this. Here, Emma, I'll show you how to do it yourself. The issue here, of course, is, although the realization is that staff member didn't have my fears and my concerns about what if this, what if that. She saw it as a simple task to show Emma, and Emma stepped up. The other picture is during COVID. So Emma obviously wasn't able to do much work because most of the businesses were closed. There were a couple that did allow her to bring some stuff home so she could still do a little bit. But we swapped tack from business, outside working, to let's look at one of Emma's big goals, which Emma has consistently said she wants to learn to drive her car. She consistently tells me she wants to drive and go to the shop all by herself. So I'm not particularly good or savvy with technology, and that's really understating it. However, Zoe and the other young ones that do work with Emma are good. So they thought way outside the square. So this is a picture of Zoe and Emma, where Zoe has found a little game online and put it onto Emma's iPad. And the game gives Emma the opportunity to sit as if in the driver's seat and see what it looks like. How you've got to look up there at what is happening. All skills that we all take for granted as a driver. They then downloaded some of the rules of the road from the transport site, and they also downloaded an intersection, had it blown up, laminated, and bought some little matchbox cars to then use that same information in another way so that Emma had the opportunity to sit there with them and go, right, Em, here's your red car, you're coming along here. Which car goes, you or that one? And they then downloaded some of the signs that we use, traffic signs, and had that blown up as well so that she could see it. And they then went out in the car and they would ask Emma, what sign is this? And Emma would point to the sign, what does that sign mean? People crossing the road. So I was absolutely blown away by the measure of inventiveness and creativity that they brought to the task, and just, which I would not have been able to do. So, And the other picture again is the Townsville Youth Council, which, as you can see, is still being done online. Zoe has been truly awesome in this role, in looking at and ensuring that Emma is presented well, that Emma has a good story on her iPad to share with the other members, because Zoe's very aware that the other young people on this have never had the opportunity to interface and engage with someone with an intellectual impairment. So through this role, Emma is helping people to look differently, to imagine something else, which I think is pretty amazing. I think this is correct, a couple of weeks' time, Zoe and Emma have been working together on a little presentation on her iPad where Emma's going to share with the other counsellors SRV and how that is a foundation to her life and what that means for her life in terms of all the things in her life. So again, in that role, Emma is being the ripple across the pond, educating people on what might be different. So you can see I'm not a big IT person. So how do you know that you're valued? I think these pictures speak it all, really. The photograph with all the ladies in red, that's the credit union. And this is a photograph taken of Emma's birthday. Now, I hadn't told them it was Emma's birthday. They know that and track that. And that, to me, is a lovely way of knowing that you're valued, that people include you. So if they have a particular thing on, they will include Emma. Good example is the next photo where Emma's in fancy dress, as is the lady beside her. In 2018, the credit union had a big statewide conference here in Townsville, and at the end of which they had a fancy dress ball. Now, they extended a lovely written invitation to Emma to come to the ball, and that it was fancy dress. So Emma chose to go along as Columbia from Rocky Horror, as one does. That's her favourite musical. So not only did Emma get invited, but they made sure that the DJ had the Time Warp on his repertoire of music to play, thinking that they'd only hear it once in the night. How wrong were they? So Em danced the night away till 1:30, had an absolute hoot. And the other lovely photos are taken recently from Emma's 5-year celebration at the credit union. I'd actually forgotten the date from when she started, but they hadn't. Now, technically, Emma's not an employee, she's a contractor, but it speaks to how much she is valued that she was treated the same as any other employee who's been there for 5 years. They host a morning tea, they give them a gift, and there's cake. And in this case, they specifically had a cake around Emma and the connection with the credit union. So for me, those things speak volumes. The other thing that I think is really lovely every year, towards the end of the year at Christmas time, it's just so beautiful to see the amount of gifts that get exchanged between Emma and her clients, and they take photos of that and post it on their Facebook pages. To me, that all says how much Emma is loved and valued for who she is, as she is, and what she brings to each of those businesses. And you can't ask for any more than that. I'll share another funny little story that when we go to the markets on a Sunday, I often just pop into Woolies and grab a few things that I've forgotten for myself. On a regular basis, we'll be walking down the aisles and various staff who I don't know will say, "G'day, Em, how you going?" They don't know me, but they know my daughter. Again, I think that shows that Emma is valued. As I find the right button, okay. So, the benefits of a good life. So for me, there are lots of things about a good life for all of us. Obviously, financial security, home, friends, all of those things. But if I had to sort of encase all of that, for me, it's choice. It's having the freedom to make the choices that you want to make, as opposed to people with disability who are congregated and segregated, who get to make a whole choice along with everyone else. Emma gets to choose where does she want to go and why does she want to go there. So in 2017, Em had 10 days in Japan. She had an absolute hoot. So before she went, I'd gone to great lengths to ensure that Em would still be able to FaceTime me because that's how she communicates. Didn't get one call until she got back in Brisbane where she signed to me, "Hi, it's me. I'm back." Great. But I think one of the lovely successes of that story comes from Rebecca, who took her to Japan, in that she said it was just awesome to watch Em get up every day and then just embrace whatever the day held. And to see the way in which other people in Japan embraced Emma and engaged with Emma. She felt very proud of Emma. And the spin-off of that was that when Rebecca and Emma came back, Rebecca then had other ideas of other ways to expand Emma's thinking and expand and grow Emma's life, which was awesome. In 2018, Emma was invited to present at a disability expo in Christchurch, which was wonderful. So we decided, well, this might as well be a holiday as well. So she had the opportunity to have another holiday in New Zealand. And then some of you will remember Lorna Sullivan. Yeah, the lovely Lorna who used to be here in Queensland. She invited Emma to come to Auckland and present to a provider there, where Emma got to speak to lots of families and had such a lovely day and was so well taken care of. Emma, like all of us, loves to go out for tea. She has a favourite restaurant. My point here is she has the choice to choose that restaurant. She has the freedom because she earns money. She's not just dependent on a pension. Her favourite restaurant is a Japanese restaurant. She loves knockback sake and some sushi. The picture of Emma with Georgia is taken in Melbourne, where they went for a holiday to see, naturally, the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Emma absolutely loved it. And Miss Em loves to knock back a beer in a pub and listen to some of her favourite local bands. And the other one is Zoe and Emma. Last year there was a celebration for Rocky Horror at one of the local movie theatres, and everybody got dressed up and they decorated the theatre, and of course Em had a wonderful time. So the power of Auntie Emma. So this is a very new thing for Emma to become an aunt. It's really quite recent. So this photo was taken the day that Emma met her little niece, Penny. And I think the telling thing from this occasion was what my son said. He became quite emotional and said, "You know, Mum, I think Penny is going to be the luckiest little girl in the world to have Em as an auntie." He said, "What auntie does anyone have that's not going to say, eat your tea and clean your teeth?" She's going to be, let's watch DVDs. Penny will always be loved. She will always be valued. The other thing that I want to share about this photo is that many times people with disability, particularly people with intellectual impairment, are perpetually the recipient of care, but never get to be the giver of care. And that's a really important thing for all of us, to have balance in our life. Life is about giving and receiving, and it's important for people to have that. And I experienced that a couple of years ago when I was very sick, and I hadn't talked to Emma about the details of my illness, but on a regular basis, Emma would ask staff to come and see Mummy. So this particular afternoon, I was lying down when she came, and I was trying to get up, and Emma, ever so gently, was trying to assist me and help me and stroke me. And in that moment, I realised the power of having the opportunity to be the carer. So I think Penny's very fortunate, and so is Emma, to have that in her life. So that's really the end of my presentation. I hope that's helpful, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions.
That was absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much for that, Jo. And I agree with Tony's comment that nothing says inclusion like a bit of debt is a fabulous. We might quote you on that one. That was awesome. And I agree. I think the importance of reciprocity is just so important that often people with disability don't get that opportunity. So, yeah, but it's a wonderful story and, you know, a lot of hard work, and I love how you've really helped facilitate Emma to be as independent as possible in her work but also in her life. And you've demonstrated beautifully how you didn't wait for the funding to get this off the ground. You just started, but now you do. Emma does have NDIS funding, and we do probably have a couple of questions around that, of course. But what I'd love now is to bring Donna back to the room as well, and we might just have some questions for you both.
Sure.
Just got a question here, Jo. The staff and lifestyle assistants are they directly employed by the business or by the microenterprise or microboard? And are business staff separated out to help understand business finances?
So, as I mentioned, Emma has a microboard. The microboard is Emma's formal employer, so they manage her NDIS funding, and it's NDIS funding that pays for staff both at home and within the business. So at this point, we haven't done anything like getting staff to further understand mechanisms of business, but it is something that the microboard is looking at for future, how we will, because that's ultimately what I'm looking at, is me stepping further away, because ultimately one day I'm going to step away permanently. And if Emma can't go on without me and live a good, independent life, then I will have failed her and not done my job. So my job is doing that. And at the moment, that is something that we're looking at doing, helping somebody else to do more of what I do.
Thanks for that, Jo. Donna, I don't know whether you heard that question because you were trying to get into the room. And actually, I don't think your audio's on too. Just up the top, you'll see a little microphone.
On?
There we go. Now you got it. Yeah.
Okay.
So the question was, are the lifestyle assistants directly employed by the business, or are you using NDIS funding to employ the lifestyle assistants?
No, it doesn't work like that. So probably more along the line of what Jo's been talking about, I think, is creating a good life for Freya, which we happen to call Imagine. Nice segue to Imagine More. But we imagined what Freya's life would look like, and that was before we got the NDIS funding. So our package came in 2018. Our business started in 2016. So like Jo, we, didn't wait for funding. Our business wouldn't be what it is now without that package of funding. But within the package, Freya's time is probably somewhere around, when the shop's open, probably 15 to 20 hours working capacity in her work. So her staff, the lifestyle assistants, do work with her across all aspects of her life. So I was listening to Jo talking about the different roles that people play. So Freya's a worker. She's also now, because of COVID, actually working towards living more independently, because she's demonstrated to me that home is something that's had more focus. And while she's living in the house with me, she hasn't really got a chance to demonstrate some of the things that she has when she's had some independent stays away. So I kind of think there's 4 areas in Freya's life that we work on: her occupation, her her independence towards living away from home, which will happen in the next 2 years, her health, because she has quite serious health issues that are managed through physical activity, and that could be dancing, could be gym, could be physiotherapy, and her leisure and recreation is the 4th one. Now, with COVID, we've had less recreation and leisure, less occupation, we've had more health and more home. But when COVID's not here, it's spread equally amongst the four things. The lifestyle assistants are chosen based around some of those specific skill areas. And during COVID, sewing's actually moved right to the forefront, where we actually have a lifestyle assistant who's actually a dressmaker for the Queensland, one of the Queensland dance companies here. She lost work. And she was making some dresses for me when the shop first opened, which was an independent thing. It was something that I was interested in. Freya kept saying she wanted a particular type of dress to wear, and that just demonstrates to me how her sewing went from just, making a hand-stuffed small doll at school to saying, I want a lime green shift, which just happened to look like a Somerville House uniform. But that's what she wanted, and the previous staff we had were not capable of meeting Freya's need. And so I went, okay, we've got the time, let's hire Sharon. And so now Freya's done, I think, 6 sessions with Sharon at 3 hours at a time. I was a bit concerned that Sharon would have difficulty with Freya's communication, so one of the other lifestyle assistants who works with Freya closely went along, to the point now where she can step out and just Sharon and Freya can actually do those sessions together. So I think it's always about what the role is, what the activity is, what the environment is, and, thank heavens for the beauty of the NDIS is if I self-manage the money, I have 2 other people who take the burden off me from that, because I'm moving towards being Freya's mum. And I want to stop. I still want to be her business partner, because that's the role I want to play. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, no, that's great.
Because I can go on and on about that. I love the things Jo was saying, because it is. It's about them doing themselves out of a job, seeing what's possible, facilitating that. Like, I would never have said 5 years ago, hey, Freya, hook up with Sharon. I mean, why not? I'm designing dresses and making them. I don't want to sew them. She does, it's fantastic. Not that we won't ever sell them through our business. That's an interest that we have. And if she had more orders for bunting, then she'd have less time for sewing her own frocks. Yeah, and we have got an order already, so inundate us, please.
Great, that's beautiful. And actually, when I saw that photo of Freya's dress, the lime green, I actually went to that school, so it took me back.
And that school just happens to be right next to the hospital. So, we catch the bus in the afternoon. What she see at 3:30 in the afternoon, and we don't catch the bus together. Now in the last bit of time is Freya goes to the shop. She opens up with her lifestyle assistant, and we swap shifts. So, it's not me walking hand in hand with her. It's very much her having her own role in this business.
Yeah, that's great. And Jo, can you just go into a bit about, so when the staff take Emma to work and she's set up and then they go away, how does that work with paying the staff when, because I think people might get a bit funny. They think, but if they're not with them all the time, well, how do we navigate that and pay them?
Yeah. So yeah, this was something that we had to look and think about. And it was a big discussion with Microboard, but ultimately we decided that split shifts is just too complicated.
Yeah.
Messing around. So
Yeah.
we pay the girls to start at 8:30 in the morning until they finish. So if Emma has an early finish at 2:30, if she goes right through to 5:30, 5:45, which does sometimes happen, then they're paid right through till then. So I'll just share briefly a story. So it demonstrates a lot of things. It demonstrates the ownership of Emma by businesses and different thinking. So probably about 6 months ago, I got a call one day from the manager of one of Emma's clients to say, "Hi, Joe, I just want to tell you that girl that you're paying to work with Emma, she's not doing her job." And I said, "Oh, okay, that's really interesting. Tell me about that." And she said, "Well, I don't know if you know, but she just comes here and dumps her off and then she goes." And I said, "Well, that's actually what I'm paying her for."
Yeah.
And she said, "What?" And I said, "Yeah, the idea is that it's Emma's business. She's just the scaffolding. She's not the business. She's actually not part of the business. She's just the scaffolding that supports Emma." And so she was a bit taken back and she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, it's Emma and what you're not seeing because you're the manager, what you don't see is the engagement that Emma has with staff at the front desk, with other people in offices that'll pop out and say hello to Emma, chat to Emma, or, if Emma gets stuck with something, they'll assist Emma." Because what we discovered in the first place was when I was there, or when I first had staff in, if staff hung around, then the businesses tended to kind of go, oh, better get the paid person. Whereas if they're removed, then the people in that business, in that organisation, then move towards Emma and then start to figure out, okay, how do we communicate? So in each of those businesses, we have had a little bit of time spent with them explaining the communication system and how it works. And Emma, in her own little ways, teaching them different signs as well. So, there's other jobs for them to do, which is essentially trying to connect and hook things up, stay out of the picture, but support.
Can I jump in there too? Because I think that's really interesting, Joe, because the split shifts are really hard to manage. And when people, for Freya, on different days of different times, she has more to give. Like, she spoke to you yesterday, Jan, and she had a lot to give. All day she's been giving, amazing things before she got to this process, And so I've just learned to go, like all of us, some days when I used to go to the Marta Florist, I went above and beyond to be, a great staff member. And other days I dragged my feet to be there and I just took the money, and so some days Freya will be all over the customer and she'll want to do every component of it. And other days she'll let the lifestyle assistant take a majority of that, and she might choose to be more on meet and greet. She'll get out her phone and she'll want to tell them all about her life. She's not too interested in giving them a gift. And I go, well, that's the difference of our business. It's shop with a difference because it's highly motivated by customer service. That's one of the key things we deliver. So when people come back, they come back to see Freya and the great products that we sell. But the reason why I set up a micro business was to have a life that was really meaningful for her around what she was prepared to give on any particular day. And we're in a hospital because both of us spent an awful lot of time in a hospital. So, the location of our business is a bit around an environment we knew a lot of as patients and me as a retail worker, so some days are hot and some days are...
And Donna, on that, what happens to the shop when Freya is in hospital for those periods? And I imagine you're probably with her as well, or do you have other staff that run the shop?
We're in two different phases around that. So depending on what that is, if one of the lifestyle assistants were to step into that role, then the shop, thinking of you gift, pays for the time that that person is working. And I take that with a grain of salt. The NDIS doesn't fund having my shop paid with paid staff. You know, a majority of the time I'm there, and when I'm not there, Freya's there being supported by somebody to play her role as a retail assistant. Now, on the rare occasions when, you know, she has to have a difficult procedure where she might be in hospital for 3 or 4 days, we run a business, and so we either choose to close it and we say we only do online deliveries. It's flexible. We have a rental agreement that can accommodate that. It's all in a mix, you know. I think if you tried to, because we did have UQ business in the very second year of business, 2017, I was very concerned about the money and trying to make a lot of money and trying to make the business pay. And we didn't have anything to support the kind of lifestyle assistance around all aspects of Freya's life, you know, which is really not just occupation. And I think as Joe's saying, you know, it's like we're mothers. But I don't want to be playing the same mothering role that I did when she was 12. She's 23 and she exhibits independence that I can't even imagine when you give her the opportunity. Like, she's been away in the last week down to Lismore. I barely heard from her. And when I did, you know, she was sending photos of me making scrambled eggs and going to a bar. Now, she only had a mocktail because she won't even try a gin and tonic. I'm waiting for the day. It's those opportunities. So I'm really keen for her to move out. And my husband's going, no way. I'm going, yes, you watch. She's ready. I'm ready, you know. And it's come from the confidence that I've seen. You know, I listen to Joe and I go, yes, I'm not making that up. You know, how old's Emma, Joe?
Emma will be 26 in September.
Yeah.
So
See?
she's been at this for just over. She began working at the end of 2014. So, yeah, she's been at it slowly. Where it looks now, people kind of go, oh, gee, I couldn't do that. But it didn't start with customers. No. It started with one. It started with me being the lackey.
Yeah.
And in the beginning, of course, she did not have the confidence, and we would do little role plays every morning.
Yeah.
Prompt her. So remember, we're going to work today. Remember, it's really important to say hello to people.
Yeah, absolutely the same.
At the door at the legal firm, and the secretary was sitting right here, and then walked through, looking straight ahead, signing hello. And no point looking at her.
Yeah.
Okay, technically you did what I said. Right, good on you.
Freya sat behind the column, you know, the little drawers sat on the floor, and she was like, I don't want to do this. And, you know, just because we're enclosed, confined, the room here, she was showing her disinterest, her anger at being there. She didn't understand her role or why we were doing it. And that's why I say the first year was a very tough year to try and break down routines of what she knew, which was school, into this other 5-day-a-week thing. And, you know, initially she didn't do 5 days a week. She might have done 2 days a week. I can't even remember, because most of that time I was walking around with her. Whatever activity we were testing and trying, I was there by her side. And we had volunteers coming in to work with her at the shop, which was a nightmare, because every 3 weeks I was retraining people. I was exhausted. And but this hiding, you know, behind the counter, the security came in from the hospital and were, you know, wanting to address her. And I was so angry, and I did go to the hospital security a day or two later, and I said, look, you know, this is her workplace. We have to come to an arrangement here. And if any place, this is a government building that has people who have all different needs. Let's work out what we're going to do, you know. How do I lock up my shop and take Freya outside? Because that's what she needed. We needed to leave the building and just connect with nature, and then we could come back. So I had to address how could I make my shop secure, you know, put a sign up, sorry, closed for 10 minutes, and try and find a way to just move her outside. And then to sit down and really go, okay, maybe she can't sit here for more than an hour on the first day.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that thinking, because it's not the whole, okay, we've tried it once and it didn't work, so it's not going to work. It's a, let's try another way, or what else can we do to actually help her understand what the role is.
And you know what the motivator was? The bus. She wanted to get up on the bus and go to work. And her go-kart. And this is a classic, right? So we have two go-karts in Brisbane, a green one and a blue one. So the green one is the concession and the blue one is my card. So she'd get on the bus and she'd say to me, oh, Mum, my card's not working. Because when she tapped it, it'd be orange. And when I tapped it, would be green. And I went to huge lengths trying to say to Brisbane City Council, now she needs to have a pensioner bus card. She wants a blue one. And so eventually I said, okay, you take the blue one and I'll take the green one. Because how many people had the green card? Not many. Most of us had the blue card. She wanted to be like everybody else.
Yeah. So just on that, we've got a question around, can you share some ideas of where you found your staff?
Sure. So the very first person that came into the role when Emma got some more funding was a young Indian boy who was a foreign student here, and we recruited him through JCU. So that's a process that we've used. We've also used lots of different sites. But what we're finding now is that the best way to find people is through other people. So Zoe has been an amazing find. If she ever thinks she's leaving the role, it's not happening. So she came via somebody else.
Yeah.
The young girl was pregnant and was leaving the role, and she said, but you know, I live and share this house with this girl, and she's really interested in Emma and is, you know, really wants to meet Emma. Could I bring her along? And I said, sure. So she did some buddy shifts, and it was good that she liked Emma and Emma was comfortable with her. So I'm finding that sometimes, asking people in the micro board and people that you know, do you know anyone who's looking for work, someone who's kind of around Emma's age, who's looking for something a little bit quirky and outside the square, wants to do something inspiring. And I find that we do find people that way, but I don't think there's any right or wrong way to find the right people. The right people will come to you sometimes by roundabout methods, but you usually find them.
Yeah, thanks, Jo. Donna, have you got any tips?
We used to look at universities for social work students, speech therapy students, OT students, psychology students, and that has been a good way to find people, and it is word of mouth. If you've got a good person and they've, you know, finished their uni degree and they're going on to placement or they're going on to other work, they'll usually know somebody else in their cohort. That has been great. It's a little tricky to work around their placements and their uni timetables. Things have really changed with COVID, and it's led me to the best thing ever, because, you know, Jelly, who's working with Freya now, does a majority of work, and that was mostly because the workplace became our home rather than, you know, going to the shop to work or going out and doing the other activity that Freya did in her roles. So we decided with COVID we'd just have the one worker, and she was the one who had the most flexibility because she wasn't going to university. She came via through that collective of arts people that we have. We have an arts collective that meets on Thursday. One of the arts mentors, it's, you know, his girlfriend's sister. So people come in all sorts of ways. So because Jelly's been coming 5 days a week, it's been the best thing ever. I've never, ever had somebody who's been that consistent with Freya. And the biggest change for me is she knows the mood that Freya was in the day before. I'm not doing such big handovers with people. She's already had a career and was looking for a change. Now I'm really wanting to say to her, you know, as a sole trader, because people are sole traders when they work for us, and we support their professional development with training and with any other things they might need, because we also target young women about Freya's age, because they teach me things. You know, it's a long time since I was young. don't think we had mocktails. I think we only had cocktails. You know, just different things. And I just went, hey, bingo, you know what? She could actually live independently of me. Now, not just with the one worker. I think we need a core of 3 really solid workers, and I'm going to be like a police forensic team, and I'm going to profile what my workers look like, because over 5 years, well, we started our first lot of workers when Freya was about 12 for 6 hours a week. I now know the kind of person who gets the best out of Freya. And she certainly doesn't need, you know, the high, chaotic, colourful up and down that I bring to her life. That's her personality. She needs more gentle, more considered, quieter people who just go about giving her the space. I can't give her the space because I'm putting those expectations and markers up pretty hard, because like Joe, if I can't leave this life and say I've given my daughter the best life, then that's just my value. You know, she's helped me to be the best person I could be, really. And
you're both doing an amazing job. Look, we've got time for another couple of questions. I've had a couple of times, Joe, can you give us or share with us the driving app that Emma's used? And if you don't know it, maybe send us a link afterwards. And I think you may have, because our son's also doing driving lessons. And
sure, I'll have to ask the young.
Yeah. That's fine, but for the people that were wanting to know that, we'll put it on our resource page.
There's a couple of things that they use, but yeah, I'll ask them what they downloaded for her, because I have no idea. I just sort of kind of go, that's amazing, and watch her playing with it and go, oh, great, excellent.
Yeah, there are a number of them on.
Yes, there are. Yeah, certainly Zoe and Sam were just trying to make sure that Em got some sense of what it's like to sit behind the wheel and have traffic and all the things you need to be mindful of. It's not just a case of putting it in gear and taking the park brake off. There's a lot of things to be aware of, not just knowing signs and rules. So, which was, to me, really clever thinking, way outside the box.
Yeah, and especially learning how to approach roundabouts, which we have to be very across in Canberra.
Yeah. They are tricky. For everyone, I do see lots of people have issues with it. One of the intersections that's been laminated for Emma is a roundabout, and they deliberately, consciously go to different roundabouts in Townsville. What do we do? Who's going here, Emma? What's happening? So that Emma has to think around that, which is enormously helpful, actually. And I would not have thought of those things because I ain't tech savvy. I'm an old-fashioned kind of gal.
No, that's great. Thank you. And Donna, what is the name of the business course that you did?
Oh, the business course.
Remember?
Yeah, it was done through. It no longer exists. It was run through the Wise Foundation, and it was called Business Babes. It was in 2010. But I don't know if TAFE. There's probably online things that. You basically just thinking about some accounting, thinking about some marketing. It's something I did want to say. I think I was trying to move towards it. Is when the business was in its early days, and I was trying to make it, you know, bigger than Ben-Hur in terms of financial reward. I went to the UQ Business School, and I had 4 different pods of uni students do research on thinking of you gift, and they all came back and they went, oh, what you need to do is scale up. And I went, scale up? It's not that kind of business. Microenterprise is a new style of business that's based around meaningful occupation. And I mean occupation in terms of the old-fashioned word, how you occupy your day around a vocation. And scale up. We could have a Thinking of You gift in Sydney and one in Victoria and one in Perth. And I went, you totally missed the picture, you know. That's not what it is. It's a personalised gift business around, you know, customised service.
I can
And that means, we don't make
huge.
$100,000 a year, but we may make, some money, and that's great. And she's busy at work 20 hours a week. She's not off doing activities that fill up her day. She goes to work, and she doesn't go to work from 9 till 5. The days she goes to the book warehouse, which aren't so often at the moment, because it's all about relationships. So all the suppliers we have, they're like, oh, we can courier it out. And I go, no, all our suppliers are within, a 20k radius. Her job is to navigate in the car, how to get to Brumby Book Warehouse, taking the time to meet the staff at Brumby Book Warehouse. And I said, when Freya picks up her orders, she's to sign the paper to say that she's taken the goods away, which is what I have to do. She'll sign it. And if you can't give her the time and the respect, then I'll take my business elsewhere. And so, once a year, randomly they'll go, oh, we saw this book and we thought of Freya, for free. Here you go, Freya, you take that one. So our business is about the relationships, and I'm really looking now at making a video around that through digital storytellers, which is the Queensland Social Enterprise Network. So you've got to just think outside of disability. I think sometimes we can just get caught up in that's our clan, that's our tribe, is by going to business meetings or going to QSEC or other things that are related to business. It's like what Joe's saying is you start educating people and they're surprised at the roles people can play because life's changing. People are coming out into the community and just doing everyday things. And the more people see of that happening, the more tolerance, I think, we'll have of difference.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Now, I am mindful of the time. I've just got a few things I need to share with everybody, but do you just have some parting words or a parting tip that you'd like to share with everyone?
Probably, as I said at the beginning, possibility. Anything's possible.
Hey, Freya and Jelly, do you want to come back?
Yeah, if you're thinking just disability, if you're thinking in small little ways like that, nothing will happen. But think big. Imagine what life might look like for your son or your daughter. If they didn't have a disability, what would you have dreamed? Or still dream it. And forget about the label of disability. Forget that. Just dream big and kind of go, you know what? Why not? Why not?
Well, thank you, Joe. And can you please pass on a huge thank you to Emma for all of us, and especially from the Imagine More team. It's been really generous of her to be able to share her employment story through you. So thank you.
Thanks. I will do.
And welcome back, Freya and Jelly. Any tips, Freya, that you've got for everybody? People that are looking for a job just like you or something similar?
Say, get back to work. Make me work. I want to sew bunting. Yes. Plug. You got a plug now.
Do a little pitch for your business. Freya, beautiful. So see, that's what you could get.
Yeah.
And we've just got to release the fabric from Dogstar. If you know Dogstar in Brisbane, it's a fashion house. So they've just done, because all our fabrics are tried to be recycled. So it's all a very ethical product.
Beautiful. So thank you very much, Freya, and thank you very much, Donna, for sharing today. We really appreciate it. It's been lovely to learn more about how you got started and where you are now. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I'm just going to start my little presentation up again. I won't hold you all long, but I've just got a couple of things I want to share. So I might farewell you, Freya and Donna and Joe. So thank you again. And it's gone and started from the very beginning, which is not meant to do that. I do want to thank not just Freya and Donna that joined us today, but I also want to thank all the young people that actually shared their story with us over the past 6 weeks. We really appreciate the generosity of sharing, because I know that that's what's inspired myself as a family member, but also many people that we're connected with. And I think the sharing of stories is so powerful. And I'm hoping that from joining us for the last 6 weeks, that we can now actually make a shift on these statistics where typically people with Down syndrome, intellectual disability or autism are primarily placed in employment where it's congregated. I think we've demonstrated through the stories that you've heard over the last few weeks that anything is possible, but we actually have to really vision for that and do some planning. So what we have learnt, so rather than looking at the barriers, we're actually looking at the power of information, and that we now know what it takes to learn more about who is the person, what their attributes are, skills and interests. We know how to go about the concept and the process of discovery. We also know how, we've been given some examples of what a visual resume might look like, and also how to go about customising employment or setting up a microenterprise. Now, I know that you've sort of been given lots of different information around this, and it doesn't mean we have all the answers, but it's giving us that information that we can go away with and mull over. We've also got a better understanding of how we can match people to the right job and how important that is. We know that using our connections and networks and champions within workplaces to find that employment is critical. And really, most importantly, it's about working one person at a time rather than working in groups of people based on disability or congregating people based on their disability, because it's so much harder to get to know who the person is when they're in settings like that. And as you can see from the examples today, it's about providing that opportunity to see a person's potential. And without that opportunity, we're not really going to see that. It shouldn't be the other way around where people have to earn that right. So I know sometimes when people are provided with a lot of information, particularly over a number of weeks, and some have been really detailed, or you might have heard some stories today but have a lot more questions, it can be a little overwhelming. So I do want to end today with something special, but before I do, I just want to run one final poll with you, if that's okay. And it's about understanding sort of what topic you would most like to learn more about in the future. So if you could just fill that out for us, that will sort of give us a really good idea of where to put some more focus on for future events. So if you can start, has that been published? Yep, okay. So people are popping their answers in now. Setting up a microenterprise is still pretty high. Customising a job, systematic instruction, and finding the right support. I think that's always an ongoing topic that people want to know more about. Okay, well, thank you for filling that in for us. And now we'll just publish that for you so you can see. So clearly after today, there's still a high interest in understanding more about setting up a microenterprise, but equally customising the job and understanding that systematic instruction. So stay tuned. We will make sure that we highlight those points in future workshops and in our peer groups. So I'm just going to finish the conference with this little reading that I've taken out of Tim Costello's book called Hope. And it's something that I've used not only for my own children at milestone birthdays, but also for people when sometimes they might be feeling a little bit overwhelmed or not really knowing what to do next. So for those that don't know Tim, he was the CEO of World Vision, and he's had many people approach him and many young people that have felt very anxious or nervous about what to do next in, on their journey, or they're embarking on their journey for employment. So I just want to share this with you. It was a story that Tim had heard when he was very young. A father who was a coal miner took his son down the shaft into an underground pit where he worked. He said, "Wait here in this lit space as I need to go along this tunnel." While the son was waiting for his father to come back, the light in the mine failed. He was in pitch darkness and he screamed out for his father. Down the tunnel, he heard his father's voice command him to start walking towards him. The boy cried out that he could not see anything. His father said, "Is the light on your helmet on?" The boy replied that yes, it was, but it only threw enough light to take one step ahead. And it was deep black beyond that. His father said, "Well, take that step." Of course the boy did, and he cried out that he could not see any further. His father said, "How much light can you see now?" And the boy replied, "Only about a step." And back came the instruction, "Well, take that step." There was enough light just for one step at a time. And of course, by following the soothing advice, one step after another, he finally reached the safety of his father's strong arms. We would all prefer to see much further ahead. We want the roadmap to know the shortcuts, but usually we only have enough light for the next step. To get anywhere, we must take that. So I wanted to share that with you today because I think we all know what maybe our next step could be, but I do encourage you all to surround yourself by people that you know that can help you take that first step, and stay in touch with Imagine More because we'd like to share that journey with you as well. So thank you very much for being part of the conference. It's certainly been a huge learning curve for us here at Imagine More, and I'd really like to thank the whole Imagine More team, and in particular Jackie Reichelt, who is sitting beside me and has been instrumental in getting all of the tech and everything working for us. And she's now actually doing that with a broken arm. So a huge thank you to Jackie and the rest of the Imagine More team. And I'd really like to thank you all for participating and providing some fabulous comments and questions. So thank you very much, and we hope to see you soon.